Tonight, a 5 Eyewitness News investigation finds a Minnesota man, a U.S. citizen, a veteran.
I deserve the same rights as everyone else.
Now in a fight with his own government to prove he's an American.
We're talking about you were denying somebody the right that he was born with.
We traveled to South Texas in search of answers for this man and others born under suspicion on the border.
For months, investigative reporter Eric Rasmussen has been looking into why the State Department is refusing to issue a passport to a 30-year-old Minnesotan and hundreds of other U.S. citizens.
Mark Esqueda has lived his entire life as an American, going to school here, working here, and even serving in the Marines. But now the government says it's not convinced he was born in the U.S., putting his citizenship in limbo.
I was born in Hidalgo, Texas, September 22nd, 1988.
The U.S.-Mexico border and the small town of Hidalgo, Texas.
And I was the first boy of the family.
A place that's far removed from 30-year-old Mark Esqueda's life.
That's me in second grade, I think.
In distance and time.
I think all of us are required to take a second grade picture that looks something like that.
His family moved to Minnesota when he was just 1.
Yeah, so this is my mom and me and my sister.
But when the federal government sent him a letter denying his application for a passport and challenging his citizenship.
For them to claim that I'm not an American is the biggest insult that I have ever heard.
The future for this avid hunter, Marine veteran, and tax-paying Minnesota resident suddenly hinged on what happened here 3 decades ago. At his home in southwest Minnesota, Esqueda is deciding his next steps in the fight to prove he's an American.
I spent my life trying to prove myself that I do belong here.
He agreed to sit down with us despite a struggle with speaking.
Oh, yes.
And an aversion to the spotlight.
This is really the last place I want to be.
Esqueda is one of many born to midwives in the sprawling Rio Grande Valley, where access to doctors and hospitals can be limited. But in a 2009 lawsuit, the feds say some midwives admitted to falsely filing U.S. birth records for parents who brought their babies across the border from Mexico.
There's the U.S. flag there. So.
Right, that's helpful.
Despite having a U.S. birth certificate and even serving tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan with the Marines, the government says Esqueda's citizenship is suspect.
Because of the area where I was born and in the time frame that I was born, that they suspect of fraudulent births.
Twice, the government refused to grant him a passport, even after he sent in additional evidence, including secret clearance from the military. In this letter, the director of the State Department called Esqueda's birth attendant not reliable, and the documentation Esqueda provided not sufficient to prove he was born on the U.S. side of the border.
They were basically saying, we don't really think you were born here.
Yes.
To get answers,
all electronic devices.
5 Investigates flew to Texas. We drove more than 400 miles across the state in search of Mark Esqueda's original birth records. On this morning, along the border near Hidalgo, a breakthrough.
Oh, sí?
Our producer, Ana Lastra, tracked down the midwife who says he delivered Esqueda 30 years ago.
How many babies have you delivered? ¿Cuántos bebés han entregado?
In 30 años, 30 years, and maybe 5,000.
Roberto Nunez showed us he keeps records of every one of those births.
Wow.
Here, in this tiny office, in these files.
Here.
88.
Here are the records.
This is it.
Baby number 430, 7 pounds, 7 ounces, Mark Gilbert Esqueda.
Proof. Okay.
You have the proof.
Yeah.
We'll get a copy and we'll make sure he sees it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mark, these belong to you.
So these are the actual ones?
Those are the records.
Wow. I had never had that any doubt that I actually was born there. So, but I'm glad that this shows more. Yeah.
De cuando nació Mark.
Delivering babies, including Esqueda, just 1 mile from the border, Nunez says he knew there could be questions. Even in 1988, he had a Hidalgo police officer sign off on Esqueda's birth record. To this day, this midwife says he asked police to witness births at his clinic to verify their legitimacy.
Hamster.
He says he's provided records to hundreds of people who needed extra proof of their citizenship.
No todos somos.
But the government continues to challenge passport applications from those born here.
The line between Mexico and the border, everybody. They are targeting everybody.
Everybody's under suspicion,
Yeah,
even you.
yeah. Everybody under the name midwife.
Now you're suspicious.
Yeah.
The Inspector General's office overseeing Health and Human Services here in Texas called fraudulent birth certificates a common occurrence. No one would go on camera to speak with us about it, but they conceded they can't prove some cases one way or the other.
On a weekly basis, probably have 10 people that walk into my office, with those problems.
Jaime Diaz is an immigration attorney in Brownsville, Texas. Since the U.S. started requiring proof of citizenship to cross the border in 2009,
Prove me something.
Diaz says he's helped more than 500 people get passports.
Then there is approximately 150 that I have had to file the lawsuit.
And how many of those have you won?
I won all of them except one.
Diaz and advocates say a better understanding of the Mexican-American culture in border towns like these could help reduce the number of legitimate U.S. citizens who are denied passports.
We're talking about you were denying somebody the right that he was born with. It should be an apology.
For Mark Esqueda, vindication could begin with the records we found in South Texas and brought back to Minnesota.
I was born here. I am an American. I deserve the same rights as everyone else.
Mark Esqueda still hasn't gotten a passport, but the records we found in Texas could now be part of a lawsuit the American Civil Liberties Union in Minnesota plans to file on Esqueda's behalf. Now, that Texas attorney we spoke to, Jaime Diaz, says he's seen an increase in cases under the Trump administration. But Jackie, a spokesperson for the State Department, told us its domestic passport denials are at the lowest rate in 6 years.
Eric, what if somebody has a birth certificate from the United States and they've lived here their whole life? What else can they do?
Well, the government says it really only requires a preponderance of evidence, and that just means more likely than not that you were born here in the U.S. But if people can't track down their birth records, they've been asked for early school records, or we've heard even records of a baptism.
Eric Rasmussen, thank you.